Loneliness has a way of creeping into your bones. My name is John Wallace, a retired history professor living alone in the outskirts of Seattle. I always thought life after retirement would be peaceful, but instead, I found myself stuck in an endless loop of silence. My mornings were filled with coffee that grew cold too fast, and evenings spent staring at the glow of a television screen with no one to share the couch. 60 years of life had given me wisdom, but taken so much else. Friends who had moved on, a family that no longer called as often. The days stretched long, each blending into the next, until one night, frustration outweighed pride. I picked up my phone and did something I'd never imagined. I downloaded a dating app. The interface was colorful and daunting. Photos of smiling faces scrolled past as I set up my profile. It felt absurd to think anyone would look twice at an aging professor with graying hair and deep lines etched on his face. But hope is a stubborn thing. "You're still here," I muttered to myself as I pressed Create Account. A few swipes later, there he was, Rizky Aditya, 20 years old, from Indonesia, with a charming smile and eyes that seemed to hold endless curiosity. It felt ridiculous. What could a man like him possibly see in me? But I swiped right, and to my surprise, we matched. When his first message arrived, it was polite but warm. "Hello, Mr. John. Your profile caught my eye. You seem so wise and kind." His words melted the cynicism that had taken root in me over the years. I responded, careful to keep my tone casual. Our conversation grew from short messages to long exchanges about our lives. Rizky told me about his small village, his struggles to make ends meet, and his dreams of seeing the world. I spoke of my life in Seattle, my love for history, and my longing for connection. Each word felt like a thread weaving us closer together. That night, as I lay in bed, the quiet didn't feel as heavy. For the first time in years, I had something to look forward to, a reason to wake up with a smile. Our conversations quickly became the highlight of my day. Rizky had a way of making me feel youthful, his enthusiasm infectious. He often asked me questions that caught me off guard. "What was your first love like?" he asked one evening. The question made me pause, memories flooding back like waves against a shore. I told him about my college sweetheart, a romance that ended too soon when life pulled us in different directions. Rizky listened, or at least he pretended to. "You deserve to be loved like that again," he said softly, his words a balm to my aching heart. As weeks passed, we began sharing more personal details. Rizky told me about his large family and the sacrifices he made to support them. His struggle stirred something in me, an urge to protect him, to give him the life he deserved. One day, he sent me a picture of his modest home. It was small, barely furnished, but tidy. "I've always dreamed of having more," he admitted. "A chance to explore the world, to live without worrying about tomorrow." His words struck a chord. I wanted to be the person who made his dreams come true. Maybe it was foolish, but I didn't care. I was tired of living a life ruled by logic and fear. For once, I wanted to take a chance on something, even if it seemed impossible. Rizky began calling me John instead of Mr. John, a subtle shift that made our connection feel more intimate. He started asking about my day, showing genuine interest, or so I thought. Looking back, I realized how easily I fell into his rhythm. I wanted to believe in him, in us, because the alternative was too painful to consider. As our bond deepened, the idea of meeting Rizky in person took root. At first, it was just a fantasy, a fleeting thought I dismissed as impractical. But Risky's longing to visit the United States made it hard to resist. "It's my dream," he said one evening, "to see the places you've described, to walk beside you through those streets." His words painted a vivid picture in my mind. I imagined us strolling along Seattle's waterfront, sharing stories over coffee, and bridging the vast distance that separated us. The thought was intoxicating. "Why not?" I finally said, surprising even myself. "I could buy your ticket. You could stay here for a while, see what life is like in America." Risky hesitated, or at least he pretended to. "Are you sure? That's a lot to ask." His reluctance only fueled my determination. I wanted to prove my sincerity, to show him that he mattered to me. "It's not a burden," I assured him. "I want this as much as you do." A week later, I sent him the flight details. Risky's gratitude seemed genuine, his excitement palpable. "I'll make it worth your while," he promised. "You won't regret this." As his arrival date approached, I prepared my home, nervous and eager. I cleaned every corner, stocked the fridge with foods he might like, and even bought him a welcome gift, a leather wallet I hoped he'd cherish. When the day finally came, seeing him step off that plane felt surreal. Risky was even more handsome in person, his smile bright enough to banish my doubts. He hugged me tightly, whispering, "Thank you for making this possible." My heart swelled with pride, but beneath my joy, a small voice whispered a warning I was too smitten to hear. The first few days with Risky felt like a dream. He marveled at everything, the tall buildings, the bustling streets, even the smell of fresh coffee brewing in the morning. His excitement was contagious, and I found myself rediscovering my own city through his eyes. Risky was charming in a way that felt effortless. At home, he helped me cook, laughing as I struggled to teach him how to use an oven. "Back home, everything is simpler," he said, his voice filled with nostalgia. I didn't mind his subtle critiques of my modern appliances. I was too busy enjoying his presence. We spent our days exploring. I took him to Pike Place Market, where he insisted on taking pictures of everything. "For my family," he explained, but I wondered if he was trying to make them jealous of his newfound adventure. His fascination with the little things, street performers, handcrafted trinkets, the crisp autumn air, only deepened my affection for him. At night, we'd sit on my couch, Risky scrolling through his phone while I watched him. He'd show me photos of his family, his siblings, and the village he grew up in. "I want them to have a better life," he said softly, his words tugging at my heartstrings. I began to open up about my own life, sharing stories of my younger years and the dreams I once had. Risky listened intently, his gaze unwavering. "You deserve happiness, John," he murmured. And in that moment, I believed him. But there were cracks I couldn't ignore. Risky's requests for gifts became more frequent. A new phone, designer clothes, gadgets he claimed he needed. At first, I obliged without hesitation, eager to make him happy. Still, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered doubts I didn't want to confront. I told myself he was young, that he simply needed guidance, but deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. Risky's presence began to shift the rhythm of my life. Each morning, he'd wake up before me, brewing coffee and humming an unfamiliar tune. His energy filled the house, making it feel less empty, but his constant requests were starting to wear on me. "Can we visit that mall again today?" he asked one morning, flashing me a grin that made it hard to say no. "There's a jacket I saw last time, something I could never afford back home." I hesitated but nodded. At the store, he picked out the most expensive item on the rack. It's perfect, he said, draping it over his slim shoulders. I swallowed the lump in my throat, handing over my credit card. Rizky's gratitude was always immediate, a kiss on the cheek, a warm smile. But it felt increasingly transactional. Later that night, he sat across from me at dinner, scrolling on his phone as I talked about a book I'd been reading. "That's nice," he said absently, barely glancing up. For the first time, I felt the sting of indifference in his tone. I tried to push the doubts away, convincing myself that this was love. Love required sacrifice, didn't it? I had waited so long to feel wanted, to feel alive again. Risky gave me that, even if it came at a cost. But as the days turned into weeks, I started noticing patterns. Risky spent more time on his phone, his messages filled with emojis and laughter I wasn't part of. When I asked who he was talking to, he'd brush it off. "Just friends," he'd say. His smile disarming, but his words hollow. One night, as I lay in bed beside him, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing control of the situation. Risky was a puzzle I couldn't solve, and the pieces didn't quite fit. The night I discovered the truth began like any other. Risky had fallen asleep on the couch, his phone resting on the coffee table. I was heading to bed when I noticed the screen glowing with a new message. My curiosity got the better of me. I picked up the phone, intending to turn it off, but the message caught my eye. "How much more do you think you can get from him?" My hands trembled as I opened the conversation. It was a chat between Rizky and someone named Arif. The messages painted a clear picture of betrayal. Rizky described me as gullible, someone who could be easily manipulated. "He's so lonely," Rizky had written. "He'll give me anything I want." My heart sank as I scrolled further. Arif encouraged Rizky to ask for more: money, gadgets, even a car. Rizky laughed in his replies, detailing his plans to leave as soon as he had enough. I felt a mixture of anger and heartbreak. I had let this man into my home, my life, my heart. And he had seen me as nothing more than a means to an end. I put the phone back down and walked to my room, my mind racing with what to do next. The following morning, I acted as though nothing had happened. I couldn't let Risky know I'd uncovered his deception. Not yet. I needed time to think, to plan my next move. Over breakfast, I suggested something spontaneous. "How about a road trip this weekend?" I asked, forcing a smile. Rizky's eyes lit up with excitement. "Really? That sounds amazing." The enthusiasm in his voice felt like a cruel joke, but I played along. "I'll handle everything. Hotels, meals, the works. You just relax and enjoy." Rizky nodded eagerly, unaware of the trap I was setting. I spent the next few days making arrangements. I booked a hotel in a quiet town several hours away, somewhere Rizky wouldn't be able to navigate easily on his own. Every detail of the trip was calculated to ensure my plan would go smoothly. By the time we hit the road, Rizky was brimming with excitement. He leaned out of the car window, snapping pictures and chattering about how much he loved the scenery. His carefree attitude only deepened my resolve. When we arrived at the hotel, I treated him to dinner and a bottle of wine, masking my inner turmoil with forced laughter. Rizky seemed blissfully unaware of my growing coldness. That night, as he drifted off to sleep, I stared at the ceiling, rehearsing my next steps. The man beside me wasn't who I thought he was, but I wasn't about to let him walk away without consequences. The morning sunlight streamed through the curtains as Rizky stirred awake. He reached out for me, but his hand met an empty bed. Confused, he sat up, calling my name. John, where are you? On the bedside table, he found an envelope with his name scrawled on the front. Inside was his return ticket to Indonesia and a handwritten letter. Rizky, I know everything. I know about your conversations with Arif, your plans to exploit me, your lies. I gave you my heart, and you saw it as an opportunity to take advantage of my loneliness. This trip was your last gift from me. The ticket inside will take you home. Consider it my final act of kindness. I hope someday you learn to value people for more than what they can give you. Goodbye, John. Rizky's face twisted in anger and disbelief. He scrambled to grab his phone, but his calls to me went straight to voicemail. He was stranded, alone in a foreign place with no one to manipulate anymore. 6 months after Rizky left my life, I found myself standing in front of a mirror, adjusting the tie of my best suit. Tonight was special, a gala at the community center where I volunteered. It was a chance to celebrate the lives we had helped shape and the progress we had made together. As I walked into the beautifully decorated hall, I felt a sense of pride. The room buzzed with energy, filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and heartfelt conversations. It was a stark contrast to the quiet solitude that had defined so much of my life before. Here, I was part of something bigger, a community that valued me not for my wealth, but for my heart. At the event, I met Daniel, another volunteer who had joined the center a few months earlier. He was a retired architect, a man with a warm smile and a calm presence. We struck up a conversation, and I found myself drawn to his easy charm and genuine interest in my life. For the first time in a long time, I felt a spark, not the desperate, all-consuming infatuation I had experienced with Rizky, but something steadier and more real. Over the following weeks, Daniel and I spent more time together. We discovered a shared love for classical music and old films, often spending evenings discussing our favorite symphonies or watching black and white movies in my living room. There was no pretense, no hidden agendas, just two people enjoying each other's company. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Daniel turned to me and said, "John, you have a way of making people feel seen. That's rare, and it's something I deeply admire about you." His words caught me off guard, but they resonated deeply. For so long, I had felt invisible, but here was someone who saw me, not just as a companion, but as a person of value. Our bond grew slowly, built on trust and mutual respect. Daniel understood the scars Rizky had left behind, but he never pressured me to move faster than I was ready. His patience was a balm to my still healing heart, a reminder that love doesn't have to be rushed or forced. One night, as we walked through the park near my home, Daniel took my hand in his. It was a simple gesture, but it carried a weight of meaning. For the first time in years, I felt truly at peace, not because someone else had filled the void within me, but because I had learned to fill it myself. Daniel was not my savior. He was my partner in a journey I had already begun. Looking back on my time with Rizky, I no longer felt anger or regret. He had been a stepping stone, a catalyst for change. Without him, I might never have found the courage to confront my loneliness or rediscover the parts of myself I had buried. His betrayal had hurt, but it had also set me free. As Daniel and I stood beneath the stars that night, I realized something profound. Life is not about the love you lose, but the love you find within yourself and in others. For the first time in a long time, I was ready to embrace the future, not as a man defined by his past, but as someone open to the possibilities of what could be. And for that, I was grateful. Rate it from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback is essential for me to improve and deliver better videos every day. This story is based on a real-life experience shared by one of you in the comments. Have a story to tell? Share it, and it might be featured in a future video. Thank you for your support and your rating. This story reminds us of the importance of self-worth and the lessons we learn through heartbreak. John's journey from betrayal to rediscovery shows that even in the face of manipulation, we can grow stronger and find love within ourselves. It's a powerful reminder that true love is built on honesty and respect, not deceit. Before seeking love from others, we must first value ourselves. What did you think? Don't forget to rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Thank you.